And start to record. So there we go. Awesome.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to give folks a minute to arrive. I'm putting this up. This is the creed that I recently created for Wealth Clinic. I thought it was fun to kind of look and feel into these different statements, see if they resonate with you. They resonate with me, and I got to lead the charge. So that's how they came to be. I had seen one of these done many years ago, and I was so inspired. I thought, I want to have one of those. But then I thought, there's too many choices, right? So what do you put on it? Have you ever done one of these, Karen?
No. So this is new for me. The content isn't new, but just doing it in this format is new for me, but it's fun. I like it.
Awesome. So welcome, everyone. Karen's going to be monitoring the chat. So I'm just going to tell you what's happening. Hopefully you're seeing my screen. You'll be seeing my screen most of the time. We may come off and just have it be Karen and I, but we'll use the screen share feature. My presentation it's a little bit not perfect because I wanted to be able to have more engagement and be able to see you. If I open the full PowerPoint, it actually takes everything away from my screen and I only see the presentation, and I want to see Karen and I want to see everybody on the conversation. So welcome. I'm so happy you're here. We've got a lot of good stuff put together. We've been working on this presentation up until about 20 minutes ago. So it's before. You're going to have to be patient with us. But I think that you'll enjoy it nonetheless. So we'll go ahead and get started. And by the way, I already had the question. This is being recorded, so I know it's a 2-hour, deep dive. If you have to sign off, I promise you're getting a replay probably by tomorrow. And go ahead and share that replay with others. We'd love, if you know business owners who would like to have access to this conversation, please feel free to share it. We love sharing. Sharing is caring. We put a lot of time and energy and, like 60 years of experience into what we'll be sharing with you. So we like it when you share it. Let's see, housekeeping. So Karen's going to be watching the chat. So feel free to ask questions that way. That way we keep the flow going. If there's something that we need to put somebody on the microphone at the times that we ask questions, we'll do that. But go ahead and use chat at any time. And Karen will interrupt me, or if there's comments coming through, we want this to be really engaging and conversational. So don't hesitate, chat away. We love it. We'll be watching it. So we'll go ahead and get started as soon as I figure out how I'm going to change the slides. So here we are, 5 core pillars to financial freedom. Thank you so much for being here. We have, let's see, what I wanted to do was actually start out with a story. It's something that I feel like really helps everybody understand maybe why they're here and some of my backstory. But how it starts is a young couple started their business together. They didn't have much experience, but they had high hopes of the potential of taking care of their family and doing something that they really loved. They spent over a year renovating the building that they were going to put their business in, buying supplies, setting up a hair salon in a neighborhood that was up and coming. And they painstakingly made the decision during the course of building the business to sell their home to have more money to plow into the capital to get the business going. They worked days and nights, weekends for a solid year to pull it all together and to launch their business. The hair salon and facial salon opened with a bang. It took off really successfully right from the get-go. They had lots of business, much more successful actually than they probably thought it would be from the beginning. But with that came a lot of challenges, especially around cash flow, employee turnover, paying off the debt that they had incurred because things added up as they were getting into it, and it cost a lot more than they planned. The stress of the business combined with working long hours took a toll on them, and it took a toll on their relationship. As the struggles with the money got bigger and bigger, because they didn't really have a lot of experience with managing the cash flow of the business, they found that an employee had been stealing with them. They didn't pay attention to all the things that they needed to be paying attention to, and the struggles and the stress got more and more. After a while, they actually took on partners, thinking that maybe that would be the way to have the business be more successful. But in the end, the partners just fought. There wasn't a lot of benefit to them working together. And after 3 years, they ended up deciding to close the business because it had become such a financial drain on their lives, and it wasn't pleasant anymore. I share that story with you, not to make you sad, but to help you understand my perspective, because that was my years from about 9 years to 12 years old. My parents opened this business and it financially wiped them out. It was actually never to be recovered from. They had, some money to be able to get the business going, but in the end, that experience of business ownership was so disastrous that they never recovered financially from it. And it taught me early on in life the importance of being able to really understand and manage and develop mastery around your finances, both personally and also from a business perspective, especially if you're a business owner. It ultimately led me, I think, to going into money and to understanding money more, because I felt such insecurity about money when I was young that it caused me to want to have the answers and to dive into this journey that we're going to be talking about. Unfortunately, too, it's not all that uncommon for that kind of thing to happen to businesses. You may know that like 60% of businesses aren't actually profitable. And what I mean by is they may be having enough money to come in and keep going, but they're actually not taking money out of the business. It's crazy, the numbers. And I, again and again, over this past almost 30 years in my career life, have noticed that business owners often are some of the most financially struggling people out there. For that reason, I think all the more important to have the conversation that we're going to have today, which is to hopefully set you up for success in thinking at a bigger level, at a broader, kind of taking a step back and seeing a framework for how you can be managing your personal finances, your business finances, thinking about the future and how you can set yourself up for success. Anything you want to add to that, Karen?
Yeah, I just think, hearing that story, we'll get a little bit of our background, but I'm a CPA and have been, had my own business since probably 35 years. So in helping clients and in my own experience, there's just so many things that you have to manage in a small business, being an entrepreneur. So I think the challenges that you spoke about, people can relate to them. And when you go through years in business, there will be these experiences. And a lot of it is just how you manage them and deal with them and react to them. And, hearing your parents' story, I wish there was someone who could have helped them through those times, because it could have been a different story. Yeah.
The other thing that you made me think about, which is something I wanted to talk about as we begin this journey, is, you and I have worked in the money business for a long time, and we'll talk about our backgrounds. But the number one thing that I have learned, especially since I started Wealth Clinic about 3.5 years ago, is that because money is such a trigger-oriented experience for many of us in business and in our personal lives, I found that the best possible way you can approach today's conversation is one that allows you to drop the judgment and drop the blame and drop the shame and drop anything that you're feeling bad about yourself and what you've done up until this moment in time. Because if you hold that while you listen to this, you're going to be so caught up in that story that you won't benefit as much as you can from just soaking in what we're going to be sharing with you. Do you feel anything you want to add to that, Karen?
No, I just totally agree with it. And, my own life experiences have been good and bad. And if I keep judging myself for decisions that I made that weren't so good, I could really cause myself to go into a place of fear or resistance and really hold myself back from the creation that I really want to, have in this world. So definitely spot on to hear that.
And I think I'm hoping what will come through, and we'll try to share as much as we can about, our own stuff, is neither of us are perfect at any of this. Like, we are on the journey just like you are. We are not going to have one of those conversations today that it's like, oh my God, look at how great we are. We figured out all the problems and we've solved them all. Like, that's not what this conversation is about. This is about being real and open and honest about the journey with money. And I hope that if anything, you take away the fact that we are all on this journey together and that there are no perfect, solutions for any of this. It's not like that. This is literally a journey. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking a little bit about who's on the call from the survey that I sent out. We're going to talk about some money myth busting. We're going to do a little bit of breath work and just kind of settle into what we've got going on here. We're going to talk about the hero's journey and money, and we'll dive into the 5 core pillars of financial freedom. We'll open it up to some Q&A along the way, and then we'll also be talking about this idea that we have around financial collectives. And getting your thoughts and your suggestions and your insight as we go along. So again, if you're just now joining us, feel free to use the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us where you're from. Tell us why you're here. Feel free to share anything. And Karen's going to be monitoring that. And questions that come up in the moment are very welcome. And that's why we set it up the way we did. There was a lot of options with Zoom. This isn't perfect, but it's because it allows us more interaction with everybody who's here. So who's here? You'll see that all different sorts of configurations: business owner, solopreneur, sales professional, side hustle, employed by others, and anywhere from, a pretty big spectrum, actually, people who have been doing their work for even more than 10 years and brand new startups. So that's interesting. The top 3 money challenges that came up were fear about not having enough money in the future, dealing with money fear and worries, also being able to save enough for emergencies, and then being able to pay off debt. So those were some of the themes. Both Karen and I totally relate to this because these are things that we hear all the time. And then on the business finance challenge, the number one thing was getting consistent flow of new business. Achieving consistent profitability was kind of like neck and neck with overall financial freedom from my business, and then managing and budgeting for expenses. And so we'll be talking about some of these things today. And let's see, what was the next? And so now we're going to do just a little bit of brief introductions, and I'm going to do Karen's and she's going to do mine. So but first of all, I just want to say, we could not have the more absolutely perfect person here to help us talk about accounting, bookkeeping, managing money. Karen has been doing this business money thing for over 25 years. And she's a certified valuation analyst. She's also a business broker. She helps businesses get prepared for selling one day, which is a really cool feature. A lot of people don't think about, well, do I actually have an asset that could be sold one day? And she helps people package their businesses up to do that. There's some other cool things. She's a really good dancer, and you'll find that I'm not. That's really important to know. I'm sort of tone deaf, so I follow her lead, and I'm like the Zumba, and I'm doing the wrong thing every time. So she's really good at dancing, and she's an animal lover, and she's just the most amazing person. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that we're actually talking about this together. And she's been building her business into more of this CFO for businesses, so that's what we're going to hear about more. Anything you want to add to that, Karen?
No, thank you. That was awesome.
I love you.
Oh, thank
really
you.
Beautiful.
and now I get to introduce Lisa. So many of you know Lisa. And again, I think Lisa came into my life about 3 years ago after I moved out west from Baltimore, Maryland. And now I'm in the Truckee Lake Tahoe area. So Lisa came into my life about 3 years ago when I was trying to decide what I was going to be when I grew up. And so once we started working together, I realized her true gifts. And she is also an awesome person. She is a very trained, certified financial planner, was what she did in her other life, her career. And she also was a mortgage banker. So she has a lot of financial experience, again, just like me. And I think it's why we connected. We were constantly being put in front of people with their financial life and their challenges and their successes. And so that's where our true experience comes from. And so Lisa has a company called Wealth Clinic now, and I was lucky enough to be one of her very first clients and have been with her for many years and have truly now found a way to merge my financial experiences with who I want to be as a person. That's probably the best way to say it. And Lisa is tremendous at that and helping others. So with her little side notes, she loves to dance, which I knew. I did not know she was tone deaf, so you would not know that. So you don't need to say that.
Okay. Did you know that I made up words on whenever I need them?
I did not know that either. And, you know, Lisa's definitely committed to her family. She has this intuitive power that she can just go right in and understand what you're feeling and help you work through things. Did not know she made up words. She loves to meditate, which I hope we do one today. And who knew she was an introvert? Never would have known that one either. So I learned a few things just making this introduction. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to dive into some money myth busting to kind of help everybody be more maybe on the same page about money and some things that we've learned along the way. Where to start? It's one of the things that was hard about putting this presentation together is because we both have so much experience. And what I did was I wanted to pull, and you'll notice just this echo throughout of like, what are those things that everybody thinks and assumes, but actually it's not really helpful to us. And so one of the first ones that came to mind, which actually had a lot to do with me forming Wealth Clinic, is there is a thought, at least we kind of look at ourselves, that money troubles and money worries are the same thing. And I think it's really helpful to point out that some of us deal with money troubles. That's not having enough money to take care of the things that we want and need. So money troubles can only be solved in one of two ways: make more money or spend less. It's really simple, actually. Money worries, on the other hand, has been an area that I've focused on a great deal of attention because I had my own money fears. Regardless of how much money I had, they didn't go away. And a lot of my work is about the fact that they're separate and that we need to actually look at them separately. And at the same time, what I also learned in my work is that when we deal with the money fears and the money worries, which is actually a science that I have been focused on creating and helping people with, we still have to move over and make it practical. We can't just like deal with the fears and then think that all the other magical stuff is going to come pouring into our lives. We still have to do the work. We still have to build our businesses. We still have to really understand how to manage our money better. And that was a big wake-up call for me, because I thought in the beginning when I started this business that if we just focused on the money worries and everyone felt better, then everyone would make millions of dollars. Like, I actually did think that. I had to actually see what happened to learn that it's not that simple. I wish it was. I wish there was a magic pill. The next one is making money should be easy. I think that we, especially in the internet world and the reality TV world, we have this idea that other people are out there doing something very easily to have great success. And we hold a standard that it should be easy, or that it's easy for other people, but it's not for me. And I think that we should just dispel that myth immediately. Most everybody I know who's built wealth has built it, very painstakingly in most cases. Like, they've really devoted themselves to that passion and creating the wealth, and they apply themselves every single day. It wasn't easy for them, and that's just helpful to know. The other is the reward for making money is being able to spend it. This is actually a problem in our culture. We are very reward driven. We're trained from childhood to be like, we do something and then we get the reward, and then the reward is actually going out and spending the money. the consumer culture adds into it. And what we're going to be talking about today is, yes, it's awesome to spend money, but you really have to have a good, solid plan about making sure that you also have money for other things like savings and retirement and that sort of stuff. Next one is kind of fun because, yeah, I'll go to the big, broader thing that's happening in the world right now and say, first of all, it is true that money has been treated in a very masculine way up until this moment in time. But I feel very strongly that the time has come for us to make money much more feminine in the way that we show up with it. And what that means for each of us is probably different. The way I describe it is win, win, win. If there isn't a way to have wins for everyone when you're working in transactions with people, with the world at large, then don't really want anything to do with it. But again, the feminine is very inclusive, very community driven, very supportive, very loving, very nurturing. And that's the way that I like to design my relationship with money going forward, and dropping all this baggage of what I had seen in my previous career in finance. And maybe we'll talk more. Anything you want to add to that, Karen?
Just that that's kind of the stance that I'm taking in my business about finances and money is coming from a CPA world. It was a very rigid world, and I would say a masculine world. And my new approach is to be this more caring, compassionate person around the whole money and the money story. So I think it affects a lot of people, that whole idea.
Yeah. And then the last one is the end goal is to avoid money challenges. And, many of you may know my husband and I have had great financial success by our mid-30s. And I think what I learned, I worked very, very hard from the late 90s up until the mid-2000s to build wealth for our family. And I thought that once I had a certain number, and we'll talk about this again later, that like if you had $1 million net worth or more, then all the challenges would go away and the sky, the clouds would part and the rainbows would come out. And what I have learned in my journey is this is not about making those challenges go away. It's about developing the resiliency so that you can navigate life and money in a way that doesn't knock you off your, kilter and feel as if you can't come back. It's like, we'll be talking about what does it mean to be unshakable, where you might get knocked off your center, but you're able to quickly come back and go the path that you were going. You don't get knocked off. And so I think that it's just fun to think about the fact that this is not something that we're just going to one and done. I joke because sometimes people say, well, I've done my money work. And I'm like, that's actually like saying I have done my parenting. Like I parented, there's no such thing as actually doing it. Like you're going to be doing it until the day you die. So just get over it and just know that this is something like I would never say that. And I'm a money coach. I am learning every single day about how to do this and do it more peacefully and joyfully and have it create, a more beautiful world for myself and for those around me. Anything you want to add there, Karen?
No, that was perfect.
Awesome. So what I want to do is actually, I'm a mindfulness teacher, and I think that it's always good. We're already kind of moving into this discussion. You may already be thinking about your own life and how this plays out for you. But I thought we would just take a couple moments to get grounded and connected into our bodies. And the way that we can do that is, if you like, and you're in a place that's comfortable to do so, you can go ahead and take a nice deep breath, and take that breath all the way to the crown of your head and hold it. Maybe even wiggle your toes and fingers to really feel present in your body, and then let that go. And we'll do that again a couple times. Nice, deep, belly breath this time. Holding and letting that go. And one more time. Nice deep breath. And letting that go. Just taking a moment to celebrate you. We lead these busy lives and we rarely slow down just to say thank you to ourselves. Thank you for being here, for wanting to take good care of myself. Thank you for being you, for caring so much about the world around you, about your family, your friends, for caring about others in the world, for caring about nature and the planet. Thank you for being you. Another nice deep breath. Letting that go. And bringing yourself back to the conversation. So funny, isn't it? How nice that feels. So I want to talk a little bit about the hero's journey. You might not have expected that we were going to talk about this. And I actually hesitated, but then I decided it just kept coming up all week long with my clients. And that was all I needed because I am very connected to what the universe is telling me and what I'm supposed to be sharing. And so we'll see how this affects you and how it helps you in what we're doing today. My impression is that we are on this hero's journey over and over and over again. It's just like the money journey. It's not one and done. We may be on many hero's journeys in various areas of our lives. We might have a hero's journey happening right now in our relationships with others. We may have one going on in our career, in our business. We may have one with money. The point is that the more we realize that this journey is part of the way life goes, we get to step into the flow of life and stop resisting things that are presenting themselves. So the reason I talk about this with money is that I have seen over and over again that we are always on the cusp. If you notice here, the known world and the unknown world, we're always on the cusp of a big breakthrough with something. And so today, perhaps it's an invitation to you to think about, wow, what am I ready to go from the known to the unknown with? There's probably areas of money that you have not explored personally. And the way it often works, and I've seen this happen for a lot of people, is if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, right? You've got the red pill and the blue pill, and I always forget which one takes you on the journey. But what will happen is we are confronted with opportunities to take the pill that takes us on the journey, and we turn away from it, and we resist it, and we push it away. And then we try to go back to, we kind of skip over, we don't do the unknown, and we just go back to the return. And we're like, I did that. And then we go back and we resist a lot of the challenges and the temptations that are presenting themselves in our lives. And so the invitation here is that I am pretty darn certain you wouldn't be here if you weren't ready to begin a new journey with money. And what that often means is going outside of your comfort zone and looking at areas that you may have avoided in the past. And the more you can do that, you open the door to, yes, some trials and some tribulations. And we know what that's like, especially if we run businesses, because they come at us pretty fast pace. But the good news is that if we get really good at looking at the hero's journey and seeing life that way, we are able to have perspective that keeps things, again, from being unsteady. It's like, oh, this is my hero's journey. I'm in the challenges and the temptations part, and I'm kind of heading to the abyss. And while it doesn't feel great, at least I know that there's going to be transformation and atonement coming in my path. And just knowing that is like the coolest experience ever, because you're like, this has been done before. I am not going to die. This is not going to kill me. I'm going to be okay. And it's going to be awesome on the other side of it. Karen, how many times do you think you've been down?
It's been a lot. I know the path. So no, and I think this has been a lot of my work with you, Lisa, that has made me aware of this, where before I probably had more of a victim mentality of why does this happen to me, and got kind of stuck there. And now I realize that I'm learning and changing every time, these occurrences happen in my life, and I have great experience.
We get to be pros. We get to be pros at it.
Yeah.
So what we're going to move into is this 5 core pillars to financial freedom. And we talked about this, that even diving into this is a journey in and of itself. And I was like, where do you start? It's not like we can just start with the first pillar. There's actually a few more myths that we need to bust open a little bit before we go there. It's funny that myths came up a lot. So myths and heroes' journeys, but what we'll do is just talk about these first, and then we'll dive into the pillars. So again, I've been helping business owners clear out the emotional baggage that we have from the past with money. Like, that's a really big part of what I do in my coaching. And then when we're done with that work on any particular thing, then we move into the practical. But I want to kind of get you used to this idea, because it's really unusual. I don't even know how to explain it most of the time. But I have the ability of diving in and seeing where people are stuck, helping them break through those beliefs, let them go, and then move into this new way of being with money. So that's a little bit of what we're doing here, which is kind of like, let's just look at where we might be stuck. The first one is, there's a lot of data out there that says, oh, if you have a certain amount of money coming in, 75,000 is some studies, 100,000 are other studies, 125,000 is another study. It depends on where you live. Then you will be happy. Then you will be happier than the average, something like that. What I found is that it's very inconclusive about how much money you make. And ultimately, it's about you creating the life that you want to be living, and that those studies, while they may be interesting, they aren't all that helpful, because we have to realize that we can be getting by with a lot less and having very different life experience, or we can be having a lot more. And I meet plenty of people, just to be clear, who are running businesses of $400,000-$500,000 a year, and they have nothing to show for it. And so there is a lot of room for how we're creating our lives in support of what's coming in, and that we're the only one who's going to figure out what that beautiful, magical equation looks like. The other one, the next two kind of tie in together. The first is frugality myth. Now, I am a total frugality hound. Like, you may have seen my email that I sent out today about my Parisian trip and how proud I am to have not spent that much money on my Paris vacation. I have always been more frugal. I like it. So in the 90s, when I started on my path of building wealth, I became totally obsessed with like the millionaire next door, rich dad, poor dad. How could I do this? And the millionaire next door said that many of the millionaires in the United States are the people that are actually in lower middle class neighborhoods. They're not the ones living in the higher middle class neighborhoods. They're people that are stashing money away, like as much as they possibly can. It's quite shocking, the data. Well, I totally still believe that frugality is important. I also am not seeing that kind of behavior happening so much. And I think it has something to do with the next one, which is this inflation myth. If you look at the economic data, it says that inflation is actually not that bad. Like if you liked economics in school, there's a CPI. The CPI, the Consumer Pricing Index, is very strategically created to make it look like there isn't inflation, because then that keeps people spending money and makes the government look good. And there's all kinds of reasons why I think they pick the bundle of goods that they assess. Well, the problem is that there are things that aren't in the CPI, like healthcare and a lot of hidden things, hidden costs, and especially like college education. These things are rising far faster than wages and income are. And it's a serious problem, and it's keeping people from being able to, I think, save money in the ways of the past. It's very challenging. Emergencies seem to be happening more frequently for people, and they can consume someone's finances quite quickly. I'm going to let you go on the other two, Karen, with financial advising myth and what we.
Yeah. So, and these are things, Lisa and I have talked about before and come up quite a bit when I'm working with clients. So, just on the financial advising and if I have $1 million, I'm fine myth. These are things that are always stated to me from clients. I've always been told, if I can amass $1 million, that's the magic number. I can then retire. And I don't understand that because it's different for every person. It depends on your lifestyle, where you are, what you want. So I'm trying to bust that myth with clients. There, you might need 3 million. You might be fine with something less. It depends on what you're doing with the rest of your life. On the financial advising, Lisa and I talked about this too. Lisa was a financial planner. I actually was for about 5 or 6 years in my career too. What we want to say there is, I do believe financial planning is very important, and I think you need to pay attention to it early. Financial planning isn't just when you're about to retire, and that's what I also find is that people are only going to financial planning when they're at the very end of their career, which is actually not exactly the right time, because if it's not working, then you don't have time to make corrections. So I want to promote that you go to financial planning early in your career. However, if you don't have a significant amount of assets, it may be premature to go into an asset management arrangement with financial planners. So many times a financial planner is going to take your investment wealth and they're going to charge you a management fee to take care of it, where you might not need that yet. So it's just one of those things where I just want you to be aware, what do I need? And that's where financial coaching and, connection to different people who have lived this life can really give you some good information. So that's just a tidbit I wanted to make you aware of.
Yeah, it can get very expensive fast, because if they're charging, the smaller the amount that you're investing, the more the percentage that they're charging. So you could find yourself paying 3%, even more than that. And when returns are only maybe 6%, then you're only getting 3%. Whereas if you had gone to a more do-it-yourself solution, most of that money is yours. And that money could pay off long-term for you. So it's very prudent to know enough that you can help yourself, especially as you're getting to like the $100,000 in savings or $200,000 in savings. The Think and Grow Rich myth. So even though I'm a mindset coach, I just want to be really clear that this is not about just thinking it and then the money starts pouring in. If you've been doing business for a while, you may have noticed that it doesn't really work that way. Sometimes I do have people come to me and they say, well, I I've worked on all these beliefs, but it's still not pouring in the way I thought it should. And that's when I kind of have a reality check. And it's like, well, it's really not like that. It is that we can self-sabotage and we can create problems for ourselves. But that is very different than actually the steps needed to bring the wealth into our lives. It takes a strategy. It takes mastery. It's just like anything else on the planet. If you want to go learn how to be a rock star, you're going to probably spend 10 years, 20 years, 30 years learning how to play the guitar and being really good at it. Like, everyone is trying to master something at any given time. But the trick is if you want to master money, you need to think of it in the same way of anything else on the planet. You really do need to know what you're talking about and make it an art. That, the cool thing is now with the internet, it's not that hard to actually learn things. So checking in, any questions, any comments about what we've shared thus far before I go on? Anybody questions? Is this helpful? Is it interesting? Does it make sense to you? Is it helpful to revisit this sort of stuff?
Beth says she's loving it. Thanks.
Yay! Thanks for being here. Is there something else? Any questions or comments? Please send them our way, or just even sharing, because everybody can see. They can see your chat notes, so it might help for other people. Like, are these some of the things that you found yourself being caught up in?
Yeah, so far just interesting, helpful, agreed, no questions so far. So I think they're ready. I think they're ready to dig in.
Woohoo! Awesome. Okay, perfect. So what can be done differently? So Karen and I spoke a little while ago, and we're like, well, how do we explain what we're doing here? And we just, I think most importantly, wanted to say that we're sharing with you our personal, and business owner experience. And we're trying to give you a framework. Like, I think that's what the goal is to make sure that as you leave this conversation, you've got a framework of what we see are the core areas of how you can help yourself more effectively. We couldn't give you everything. Like, if we could, that'd be pretty cool. But even condensing everything to today's time was a little bit tricky. So what are the 5 pillars? So we're going to be diving into each of these, and I'll go over them at a high level. And I'll start by saying that all of these came together, especially over the past few years, as I've been working so intensely with people and their money and watching their behavior. And one of the things that, first and foremost is this idea of money communities. And we'll talk more about it, but I can't say enough about it. And what I also will point out is I actually think number 1 is the most important one, because that's where the change happens. And I want you to notice that number 5, which is making money mastery, is normally the thing that people put as the most important thing. And I've actually put it at the bottom. And there's a reason for that. And you might get a flavor of that. But it's really because we're very oriented, or my mind is very oriented to what does it take to actually change and support change in someone's life. Because none of us would be here if everything was working perfectly. Like, we know that we need opportunity for growth. So that's what this framework, how it's been designed. Then we're going to talk about abundance, personal finance, business finance, and making money mastery. So with that, we will dive right in. So dynamic and supportive money community. What I want to say here, first and foremost, is we as a culture have chosen not to have public money conversations. Now, there is plenty of information out there in the world where people are talking about money in a educational way or an inspirational way. But the thing that I don't see happen very often is people coming together and feeling comfortable enough with each other that they're not going to be judged, especially, that's number 1, that they're not going to be looked badly upon when they share the stories of their experiences up to that point in time with money. what's funny is that's actually one of the more powerful things going on. Do you want to talk about this for a second, Karen? Because you've been involved in my communities, and I'm going to figure out, because somebody's not on mute or has unmuted. I want to see what I can do. So are you...
Unmute me. Yeah, somebody else is not muted.
I know. Let's see. I'm going to go through the list, and you.
Okay. Yeah. So again, with supportive communities, I have been with Lisa and her groups for about 3 years now. And I can say, as a small business owner, and as many of you are right now,
Hi.
Oh, I hear somebody.
Okay, yeah, I think there's a few people. It's really strange. So some people I'm not able to put on mute.
Oh, if you can mute yourself,
yes.
Everyone. Yeah. Oh, I think we got it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So one of the things that I find very often, especially with small business, and when I say small business, I'm saying revenues from 100 to even 5 million. I still consider that a small business. You many times are by yourself. You're not big enough to have a board of directors or so forth. So you're running this business by yourself. You're making decisions, and sometimes you feel very alone. So what I'm finding with these communities is it's a way to bring people together, that they are in a safe place to talk about their business, talk about their challenges, and not be judged about it. And guess what? I am a CPA and been one all my life, and I have made mistakes. So sometimes it's hard to come out and talk about it, but I've learned that one of the best things I can do is to share my experiences with others, and I can save them time and energy, because I went through this. And I can give you my feedback. You may not make the same decisions as I did. You may choose a different path, but I think there's great power in being able to talk in a group and to be able to share experiences.
Mm. Isn't it funny too? Because as you know, I've shared a lot of my money stories, and they sort of come out when people least expect them. But one of them, and I'll just share, because these are, it's in public display. It's like you really have to do a lot of work to be comfortable sharing them.
It's vulnerable.
It's very vulnerable, yeah. And what I found is, when I share these stories, like one of them is that when I left Wells Fargo, after working there for a long time, I had a pretty substantial retirement account, and I was seeing this astrologist that was helping me. I was having like a whole bunch of massive breakdowns, not as many breakthroughs as I do these days. And this astrologist had been in the financial services business, and he was very convinced back in like 2011, 2012, that the whole entire system was going to collapse. So every time I saw him, he'd be like saying things about it, and it totally freaked me out. So like I kept all this money in cash for many years. And I mean, it was like $300,000 or $400,000, guys, that I missed out on because I listened to an astrologer freak me out about the market and what was going to happen. Like, as a financial planner with this much experience, I'm just going to tell you, that's like really not easy to share. But what I found is that when I share those stories, people are like, damn, I don't feel so bad anymore. Like, that's a pretty bad mistake. What were you thinking? And we laugh about it. But that's the kind of thing that I have noticed, that when I share those stories, the people that are listening to me get the biggest breakthroughs, have the most relief. It's freaking awesome. And anything you want to add to that, Karen?
I just think that also in supportive communities, we've all probably hired different coaches, consultants, advisors, and so forth. And we can share that knowledge. So it's a knowledge base, and we all have huge networks also. So I can't tell you how many times I've said to Lisa, this is something I'm challenged with right now. And she goes, you need to talk to this person. And she's put me in direct contact with someone who absolutely understands a very specific challenge I'm having. And I can talk to someone. So not only is it the collective group, but it's the collective group's resources that become available. So I think that's a huge component of this.
Yeah. And I mean, many of us have probably been in groups, but this is very specific to money, right? So
Yeah,
sometimes we
right.
talk about our business, which may be different. We don't feel comfortable sharing this stuff in a group. And it's always like, share what you want. It's not like you have to share stuff. It's just something that we all benefit from when it happens. So moving into abundance mastery. So this has been the area that I have been focused on a lot over the past few years. And I talked about this a little bit, but we'll talk about it more. And that is that a big part of our relationship with money comes down to being able to question our assumptions around creating wealth, for example. I've found that very few of us have ever even really given ourselves permission to create wealth in our lives. And so without knowing it, without meaning to have that happen, because we're not questioning the assumptions that we're carrying, we don't actually set out to build wealth. There's also a lot of other things that happen, which is we don't give ourselves permission to do it. And when we haven't given ourselves permission, then why are we going to apply ourselves in a disciplined way to creating it? And there's also this fact that it's something that you have to do over and over and over again. I was sharing a story this morning for a podcast I was creating, and I was telling the listeners that in the mid 90s, I was just a few years out of my MBA program. The internet was just starting to come out, and I remember becoming totally fascinated by Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Millionaire Next Door, learning about what did it take to build wealth. Like, I had this idea that it was possible, but I didn't have any clue of how to do it. You don't learn that kind of stuff when you get your MBA or you get your public accounting degrees. You don't learn that. But I knew that that was the next chapter in my journey, and I became obsessed with learning what I could. Now, at that time, I had no resources. We were a homeowner, and that was it. But I knew that if I started to learn the mechanics of building wealth, and I learned what other people had done, I had confidence that maybe some of that would rub off on me. And sure enough, it did. I started to have opportunities present themselves. I started seeing opportunities and things where other people would think, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. That looks really risky. Well, to me, because I knew that this was the only way to get started, I started buying real estate and buying lots that we would eventually develop. And one thing led to another. And before you knew it, my husband and I were real estate investors dealing with properties bigger than I would have ever expected. But what I also can say is that the journey isn't over there. Once we built wealth, so by our mid-30s, we had a lot of wealth, but at that point, we had kind of hit what I call a wealth ceiling. And we spent about 10 years actually digesting that experience and trying to figure out how to keep the money that we had made. In fact, it became a very interesting journey that I could give you story after story after story of the crazy ass things that happened, because we weren't really prepared to keep that wealth. So there are so many stages that we go through in our relationship with money. What ultimately happened, you may know the story, a few years ago, after I started my company and I started diving into abundance, I looked around at my house that was like 4,000 square feet, gorgeous, beautiful, awesome, that we had created for our family. And I was like, I actually don't want this anymore. I want to live a life where my money is heavily working for me. I want to downsize. We looked at the market of where we were living, and we couldn't affordably downsize in that market. And we redesigned our whole entire life to create an opportunity to have more passive income sources. So, and now we're doing something new. It's like it continues and goes on and on. But the point is that we have to become very solutions focused versus problem focused, because it's really easy with money to be focused on all the problems, but we are like, I'm going to become a stealth like Matrix, guy in the movie, where I'm able to deal with the problems and be very resilient, and then also be steadily working on solutions. And that's kind of, the other question that we want to ask ourselves is, rather than I can't afford it, is how can I afford to live the life that I want to live? And what does that entail? Karen, anything there?
I just think to add on quickly, just what you said was, again, what I find myself being for many clients is that person to help present options and solutions. And when we're in the thick of it, sometimes we just can't get out of our own way and see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I have always found with myself and with others, when we have a new focus and a path or a plan, we can tend to get ourselves out of the struggle faster. And so that is one of the masteries, I believe, is you have an issue. I won't even call it a problem. You have a bump. And the quicker you can react to that or solve that, I believe the faster you get yourself moving forward again. And that is one of the things that, again, brainstorming, you might not have all those options at hand right now, but if you can just have them laid out in front of you, I think that makes us all move faster in the right direction again. We stumble, we might feel resistance, we might get blocked, and the quicker we can find that correct path to keep moving, we can move out of these challenges faster.
It's so good. There's so many aspects to being able to keep moving forward and not get weighed down, but also be able to take in the learnings of what's coming at us. Like, what am I learning from this? How can I respond to it? In my own journey with my coaching business that I started 3.5 years ago, I've made, I think it's always hard when you are really, really successful in one area to literally walk away completely from it and start from ground zero. And I made a lot of mistakes, I feel like, because I was so used to working at one caliber of experience that I invested a lot more money into my business early on than I probably should have. I learned a lot. I feel like I'm a great coach because I made so many mistakes in how I spent my money that I keep people from making those mistakes. But what I also have found is in every single year, I have doubled my income, which is actually quite unusual in this kind of environment in a coaching business. And I haven't done it by selling constantly. Like, it's just been very organic growth each year over and over. And my expenses are starting to flatten out. And I find that, that a lot of us, when we don't have this very strategic approach to the mindset, it can stop us in our tracks. And I think that we do need to have methodology and resources available to us, because I do this for a living. Like, I notice those blocks come up and I'm like, damn, there it is. I need to work on that, or I cannot go any further. And I'm constantly doing that. And then the cool thing about being a coach, right? Anyone who's a coach is, I do a coaching session with Karen or someone else, and I'm like, oh, I totally needed that. And then I do the work after the call, and then I'm like, thank you so much. I know it was your coaching session, but you also helped me. So there's a lot to be said for paying attention to where you're getting stuck and being able to move through that quickly, because I think when that happens, you can start to double your business every year, very, without a lot of struggle. I'm actually kind of surprised that that's happening. It's not happening because I said that's what, it's happening because I'm doing the things in my business, I think, that are helping to build a solid foundation, and then growth from there comes from that place. Any thoughts on that?
I'm going to Beth asked this question a little while ago, but she said, when we were back saying you just can't think and grow rich, she said, if I can't just think about it, how do I know what to do and when? And I think as we keep going through these pillars, we'll start to get to a bit more concrete, I'll say, things, Beth, that we have done, that we're trying to develop some framework around that might help her with that question, unless you want to.
Yeah, I think that's good. I'd actually love to have her revisit that, because I do feel like we're not going to totally answer it, but I'd love to come back to it when we've gone through a couple of these things.
Yeah.
Because and the more specificity too, when you ask those questions, we'll dive right into them, because I totally hear you. So the next pillar is personal financial mastery. So as many of you may know, I've been doing this chakra money survey, and I've had about 10,000 people take that survey. And then we got the data for even coming into today's call. And consistently, there is a lot of challenge around debt and being able to save money. And the good news is there are systems that will help us to do this. But the problem is it's like chicken and egg. Well, I don't have enough money, and I feel like it's only going to make my life more stressful if I know what's coming in and what's going out. Like, there's a lot of avoidance when we're struggling with the debt or we're struggling with the savings. But I just want to mention that all of the data and my own personal experience and watching my clients, the more we pay attention to this stuff, the more likely it is to be gotten under control and ultimately mastered. It's the avoidance that causes a lot of the problems. And so, granted, we can't go into all the reasons or all the ways that we can do this better, but there are strategies, and I'll be talking about it. But I feel like anything I create from now on has to have elements to it that give people really affordable, low-cost, proven resources that they can follow for a model of how do I get out of debt? Like, what's the system that I need to do? What's the system I need to do to be able to better understand my budgeting, for example? Like, let's keep it really basic, because sometimes that's not happening and people are out trying to build wealth. But you first have to get this basic foundation under control to be able to do the things that you want. And your knowledge of it is your most powerful tool. It's really that simple. But again, I think it helps when we hear other people having great success with this stuff. It's like, wow, they did what? When we were working on the Heal Your Money Story group, there were several people, I mean, Karen, you might want to tell about your own experience, but people who had not been saving money for years and years and years. And just by the focus of us, diving into our money stories, bringing this stuff out to the surface, I mean, one person was saving $5,000, $10,000 a month that wasn't being saved because there was a whole bunch of other fears that were coming up. And when we dealt with those fears, all of a sudden savings could happen. Any thoughts on that, Karen? It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, I mean, not to get into great detail, but one thing that it's all about the focus. And I know there are many people out there that go, that's great. I would love to get out of debt, but the income is not coming in, or it's so up and down. How in the world can I make a plan when I don't know how much I'm going to have an income next week or next month? And I know many, many small businesses operate in that fashion, and the debt could be 10,000, it could be $1 million. I mean, it's the same story and the same situation. So, sometimes it's not difficult to solve it. It's just, hey, you're spending too much on these areas. We can look at it. We can see how to pare down. We can open up some cash flow. We can handle it. Sometimes it's more uncomfortable. And I have seen so many businesses stay doing the same thing, bringing on more debt, thinking it's going to change. It's like doing something over and over and expecting a different solution. It's not going to happen. So sometimes it's a total disruption. You need to change something very big about your business. And when I say very big, it is restructure a loan, move, downsize, do something different, get rid of a key employee that you might love, but they aren't doing the right job. So sometimes it's hard, and that's why we've avoided it, because it's hard. So you just need to know that if you feel helpless and that there isn't a solution, oh, I bet there is. It just might be uncomfortable. But if you want to make a difference, sometimes you have to make some decisions that are out of your comfort zone, but it'll get you on the right path.
We recently came across, I was sharing with you, Karen, we came across a model that was really cool. Like, these are the things that we're good at finding out there, but we found a model that is a much better tool than I've ever seen about which debt do I pay off first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And those are the sorts of things that like can really help you, because I get asked this question all the time, like, well, which of these goes first? And it's, there's lots of different ways, but we came across something recently. You can email me and I can share that with you, but it's great because these tools actually make things simple. So something that you were really struggling with and keeping you up at night might actually, there's a tool that will make it at least a little bit easier to feel confident that you're taking the right path. So any questions? We've got one slide on like this huge topic.
Yeah.
And I want to be specific enough, but I don't want to, not everybody is here because of this, but I do know that it's important to have this because, let's face it, our business finance builds off of the personal finance. So if the personal finance isn't in order, it's really tough to have the business in order. And so I'm going to turn, let's see, I know a chat, maybe there was a question that just came in.
Yeah, it was, what tools do you recommend? You Need a Budget, which is YNAB, or Mint. I'll let you go, Lisa. I'm using some of these with my clients right now. So
yeah, and I'm looking at a new software. I'm actually meeting with the folks next week at FinCon at a conference called Cinch. And the cool thing about Cinch, I've struggled with YNAB with some of my clients because it's pretty daunting to get into it. And a lot of people, including myself, have gotten into it and been like, yeah, this isn't really fun. And I don't have this much time. Cinch is similar, but the idea that I've learned is that it's a startup. It's very oriented to people like us where our income is very inconsistent. And the system is actually doing a bit of AI where it's watching our behavior and the deposits that we're making into our accounts and helping us to deal with that inconsistent flow of income. So stand by for more. I'm going to be researching it over the coming month and trying it out in my own life because I want to be able to give tools. And there's a possibility that we even provide that solution as part of what we're putting together so that we're all working off of the same system. And then we can answer questions more easily with something like that to manage our money.
Yeah. And so I see Beth saying she loves You Need a Budget, but there's a learning curve there. I am heavily into it right now because some of my clients are using it. So I am in the learning curve, Beth. I might have to call you. But I see that, it definitely has some positive effects and can get people on the right track. Cinch, I'd like to learn about. I haven't used Mint. I'm an accountant. I go back to daggone QuickBooks. If you can, QuickBooks is a great tool also. And if you're using it for your business, it's so easy to just call your personal life a business and just use QuickBooks for your personal life, just like you do for your business. And then you don't have to learn another new software. And then I'm going to say, people do Excel spreadsheets. It's okay. Whatever you learn, don't not budget or do your personal finances because you are blocked because you don't want to learn something or it's too hard to get into a system. Whatever, I don't care if you take a piece of paper, whatever you know and can work with right away, do it because you're paying attention to it. And then, as we all talk and we all find things we love and are easy, we can help each other use the right tool. But use a yellow pad if you have to and write it down.
I love it. I have not used a bookkeeper yet. I have been doing the management through a Google spreadsheet of my expenses and watching it that way. And I'm a money person, but I'm pretty much at that point where I've hit the limit of what I'm going to be able to do with my system. But in all full disclosure, I've been entering or having my assistant enter the expenses and just watching it that way. And it's worked up till now. So the point is being able to pay attention to it.
Right.
And I think that's what you're going to talk about even with this slide. So
yeah. So now we're into pillar number 4, which is the business finance mastery, and this is kind of my wheelhouse. What I do, this is what I do. So the first thing in business, and it is the absolute first thing I ask any business when I go, how's your cash flow? How is your cash flow? And I can honestly say in 90% of the cases, there is the struggle. It's cash flow management. And hand in hand with that is tax planning. But again, I don't want to go deep into all of these, but I just have a couple of notes here, is when you can operate cash flow smoothly and efficiently, you will be able to create and work on your business, because that is the number one thing that stresses and pulls you away from what you want to be doing. So if you can solve your cash flow, it frees you up to be so much more productive. And so that's the number one thing when I go into a business. I try to help them get that cash flow under control. And believe me, I understand the issues there. It could be a seasonal business. It could be ups and downs of not having steady sales yet. Production could hold things up. Collection, how you're billing, accounts receivable. So again, there's so many pieces to when I say cash flow management. But if you're struggling to make payroll in 2 weeks, or you need a new piece of equipment but you can't afford to purchase it, these are the things that business owners need to understand and how to operate. And again, it's back to paying attention. So one of the things I like to do right away, and I don't care, again, the system, QuickBooks can do it, you can do it on an Excel spreadsheet, is you've got to have a cash flow forecaster in place. You've got to know what your cash flow is going to be 15, 30, 60, 90, 120 days out. So it's all about focus and understanding your numbers. On the tax planning side, I can't preach it enough. Right now, today in your business, if you don't know where you sit right now, you need to update your books and you need to understand it, because it is right now in this crucial last few months that you're going to plan for your tax planning, and it can make productive decisions instead of April 11th getting the call you owe some ungodly amount of money. And you don't know how that happened. Like, that should not be happening. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. You could be getting that call and say, guess what? You're getting a $20,000 refund. My question is, why'd you let the IRS sit on that $20,000 all year? Right? Like, it could go the other way. So that's my little tidbit there. CPA versus CFO. I'm a CPA. I ran a CPA firm for many years. If you're in business, you probably have somebody doing your taxes, whether they're CPA or whoever, and they're going to help you. They're going to look at your information. They're going to produce a financial statement. They're going to get you in line with taxes, keep you compliant, and that's wonderful. A CFO is different. A CFO is, they're on your team. They are inside your business operation, making management decisions with you, strategic decisions with you, and most people with a small business can't afford a CFO. Bring one on time, you're 6 figures plus. So one of the things I like for anyone to understand, and this is through this course, through these types of groups that we can help each other, is a CFO is going to help you strategize and make these big management decisions. So if you can't bring on a 6-figure CFO, it is groups like this and resources like ours that can give you the information that a CFO would. So they're more of a team player, inside person, understanding all of the nuances of your business. I talked a little bit about knowing your business and key indicators. So again, if you're not monitoring just some simple key numbers every month, I know that there are many business owners out there that maybe produce a financial statement or get a financial statement, but they don't really know how to read that financial statement. And instead of being completely overwhelmed with that, although I would love for you to know how to read your financial statement, if you could just get some bullet key indicators, I call them management indicators, whatever it is, flash report. Every business is going to have their own. And it could be your sales. It could be your pipeline. I know one of the things that was of a concern is, how do I keep my sales funnel going? You may be tracking proposals, bids, following up on them. That might be one of your indicators. How many proposals did I put out this month? Your gross margins for restaurants, it might be how many covers did I do? So I can go on and on depending on the industry, but if it's all about making it simple. This doesn't need to be a hardship. It needs to be something that you can simply find those figures and get a good idea of what's on track and off track, and be able to make decisions quickly, not 6 months after something occurred. So that's what I'm focusing on there. Profit strategies, it's just, if you have profit, what are you doing with it? So first we need to get you profitable. And then once you have profit, you have to know what to do with it. And all of those strategies are going to be wrapped around what you want. There's no menu. There's no cookie cutter solution for every business. We're all different. We all want different things. So what you need to say is, what do I want? Do I want growth? Do I want retirement? Do I want to save for a certain machinery? Do I want a new employee? So it's all about having profit and taking that profit and putting it in the right bucket. And one of the buckets is reserves for taxes. So again, it's all about knowing, if I have cash flow, I have to put it in different buckets so I can solve the issues that are important to me and that will take care of my business. And a lot of that's cash flow for emergency. So it's really just understanding what you want. Yeah. And then the last thing is proactive versus reactive management. And we all fall into this. So we have we're running our business and we want to do this, this, and this. And then something happens and we're derailed and we're reacting to a problem or a customer or whatever. That's always going to happen. What I'm talking about is the long-term issues. Do you have an employee that if they quit tomorrow, you would not be able to produce? Are you cross-training? Do you have a lease that's going to run out? And if you don't pay attention to that, your business could be in trouble by not having the space they need. Do you need to buy a certain piece of equipment? You have no idea how to purchase it. So it's pre-planning on these things. It helps you to plan for seasonality and downturns. I'm in a resort town. We are up and down the economy. We are dependent on if it snows or not. Now, how in the world do you deal with that when you're a business owner? My livelihood is if it snows or not. Well, guess what? You got to plan for that. You've got to plan that it might not snow. How are you going to get through it? And all of this coming down to increase your rate of savings, save on taxes. These are all part of everything I just described. Those are going to be pieces of what we're trying to solve. And then the last thing, Lisa put it on the slide, and I love it. Know I am unshakable, meaning that nothing rattles you for too long, because we're going to get rattled. So, I have had many times where I'll say something happens, you get that sucker punch feeling in your gut, like, oh, geez, how am I going to handle this? But if you've been a good planner and you're organized, you generally will have a solution quickly, and you can come right back and solve it because you're not, as I have lived before, in kind of a victim mentality where, oh, geez, this always happens to me, or why is this happening to me? Stuff is going to happen, period. That's life. And the more you can move past it and quickly go to action, that is the unshakable that we're hoping to get to in our business lives, which, it's not easy.
Yeah. This was, and you might have these funny stories in the back, and I'm just going to share because I think it's fun. A couple of years ago, Karen and I were both going through breakdowns to breakthroughs, and it was Christmas time, which is kind of a time of reflection. And we were on the phone, and we were both struggling in our businesses, and it was like, damn, this is not happening the way we wanted it to happen. And we made a pact that our plan B was I'm like, I'm a good waitress. I think I'm going to go wait tables when this all falls apart. And then what did you say? You're like,
oh, well, I just live in an area that they always need house cleaners. So I was just going to go. I'm horrible at cleaning houses. I'm horrible at it, but that's what I was going to do.
So we had our plan B. That was our unshakable plan at that time. It was like,
yeah.
No, maybe we got to rethink this. And it's fun to have those packs because let's face it, at times with business, it feels like it's all falling apart. Oftentimes, I will say it's right before you're on the cusp of something really, really big. And if you did throw in the towel, you would miss out. But we definitely need friends that we can be clear about the struggles that we're going through and honest that it's actually quite difficult to do some of these things. So you choose that.
So Beth posted, I got fired from house cleaning, so bad at it. My fallback is definitely bookkeeping work. I'm right with you, Beth. I would get fired at housekeeping in a heartbeat. So bookkeeping is probably the better thing. So just to finish this pillar number 4, I just want to say that I have so just touched on the tip of the iceberg on this stuff. If there's anyone out there that needs help, this is where I think is my gift, that I can go into a business, see things quickly and quickly hone in on them and help you make decisions that need to be made in a very smart manner, not impulsive, thought through. And so I just want to add that there at the end.
Yeah, it's so cool. A few years ago, and actually that might fit into this next slide. So making money mastery. Karen had been coaching with me, but we were looking at taking the plunge from going from personal or residential real estate into commercial real estate. And it was quite daunting. I was like totally overwhelmed. And I thought, I don't know if we can do it. I don't know what I'm getting into. And I knew that Karen was a business broker. And so we were thinking about putting in an offer. And a lot of these things, like we had to act fast. And I was able to send a note and say, hey, does this make any sense? Am I crazy? And within a very short, I think, conversation, it was like you were able to be like, hey, it's not that different than what you've already done. You're probably going to be okay. Let's look at the contract. But it was a very simple assistance. And literally that was probably like $150,000 decision. Like we ended up buying the property for a lot less than it was worth. And we needed to act fast. But I just want to say, like, having resources of people like Karen and myself available to you is worth a lot when these decisions come in and you're like, what do? I don't know if I should. And this leads into this business money mastery. Is I heard this morning. I interviewed Adam Carroll for my podcast, so you'll have to watch out for this. But he just really, it was so perfect for this morning. And he said, once you realize that there is money flowing around in our economy, in the world economy, to the tune of $4 trillion on a daily basis, you just have to figure out how to dip your toes in it. And he said some people go in and take a thimble to go into the river that's flowing. Other people take buckets and buckets. It's our choice of what we're going to do. Like when we get in that scarcity and lack mentality, we are forgetting just how much opportunity there is in the world. This next slide, I'm going to touch on it. I'm not going to dive too much into it. The point is that there are plenty of strategies out there that many of us do not think about because we're so inside of our businesses that we are missing out on leverage and opportunities to increase cash flow. Now, some of them may be what Karen brings people's attention to, like, I know one of our mutual clients, like they weren't billing fast enough. They had a lot of money that wasn't being collected because of the way that was built. So you drastically increased cash flow for somebody by just changing the policies of how people pay. In other situations, it's like sometimes we have $1 million ideas. They really are. But if you don't structure it like $1 million idea, you can languish at the $50,000 mark quite easily. And there are a lot of things that we can do to help people be more strategic in the way that they structure their offerings. And And you have to be really careful that your expenses make sense. I mean, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. So the point here is that I think it's very helpful to specialize and realize that this is not marketing per se. It's not sales per se. This is about the strategy of how are you creating your business so that you make the most profit in that business. And you're not trading hours for dollars, which many of us do. And it's quite frankly exhausting. You know, how can you leverage your strengths and skills to get out to the most people, provide the most biggest value, you know, that you possibly can so that you're compensated for that value. Karen, anything to add?
No, I'm good. That was perfect.
Awesome. Okay. So why do these matter? You know, we haven't talked a lot about this, but we're going to refresh ourselves that financial mastery is very important because it ties into how we feel about our lives, about our freedom, our security, peace, love, happiness, joy, family, legacy. Like when we master our finances, it's such an important part of our lives that these other things have more opportunity to grow and thrive in our lives. It's like what you pay attention to grows. So if you pay attention to your money, it grows, and it gives you the capacity to also grow these other areas of your life. But I will say there are many different ways to create a business. I want to be really clear that the strategies that I look at and promote are around quality of life, around making sure that what you do is echoing your values. Because if you're not creating things that you might be able to make a lot of money with them, but you actually don't want to do them once it's built, that's not really the thing that I'm going to be focused on. I'm going to be focused on how can you take your passions and the things you enjoy doing and take them to the next level. So we'll stop for a second and just check in. Any questions or comments? We had a question here that came in on the survey that we can answer. So maybe Karen, I loved your response on this one. So maybe, do you want to take a moment to?
Sure. So they just wanted to know, you know, through our experiences, what would we have done differently in our professional path? So I started my accounting firm when I was 24. Kept that firm for about 25 years, sold it, did brokering on the East Coast, and then came out here to be a grandma. And now I'm starting it all again. I'm starting an accounting firm here, and I'm also doing brokering. So one of the things that just immediately comes to mind, and Lisa kind of touched on it on her startup with her wealth clinic, is there have been many times in my career where I probably jumped too fast on different opportunities. And when I say opportunities, I usually mean spending money. So making very large capital investments on things that I hadn't really completely thought through. And I hate to say this, sometimes the excitement of the opportunity got the best of me, where I'm a financial person, but I made decisions that were probably not airtight, and there was too much risk on the other side is probably the best way to put it, and ended up getting a bit burned on those. So if I had to make a decision, the other thing that I didn't listen to was my gut, the intuitive feelings that would many times come up and say, you really shouldn't do that. And I would be influenced by other people or situation. And I say, I'm just going to do it anyway. So if anything, it's, I now make decisions, not as a pessimist, because I am very optimistic, but I will just say more grounded. I make decisions in a more grounded manner. And that's what I hope to share with my clients too, is to kind of be a grounding force. And again, I'm very optimistic. I am always looking forward and open to things. And then the other biggest thing is try not to do too many things all at once. I tried to be the master of many, many things, and found that I could only give about 10% to each of them. Whereas if I focused completely on being very, very good at one thing, I could give 100%, and it usually was successful by doing so. So those are the couple things that I found through my path.
Yeah. I'll add, the first thing that I thought of was I wish I had become an entrepreneur, a full-time entrepreneur much earlier in life. I think that I think that I'm having so much fun. I enjoy this path so much. I didn't realize that it would be as awesome as it is. But I was really, really scared about my ability to do this whole business thing. So I had to get rid of a lot of baggage to be able to show up and do this. The other thing would be building on, I think I love picking one thing at a time, or just not more than 3 initiatives at any time. Simplifying is really good. And then the third thing is pricing, learning about pricing, like really understanding. And what I will say to you, and even what I'm doing with going forward in my business, is that I know what I would be happy earning for the contributions that I'm making into the world. And so the big shift that's just been happening recently is, well, what's that number? How can I get to that number? What are the different components? And making sure that when I price myself out on an hourly basis or on a package basis, that is going to echo the goal that I'm trying to get to. And so probably taking on less coaching clients going forward, having those be deeper relationships, because I just realized that time is so precious, and I'm been working far too much this past few years. And I see that my quality of life with my family will suffer if I continue to do it this way. So I'm being more and more strategic in how I use my time. And I feel like that's maybe helpful for other people to hear. So did any other questions come in? Okay. Okie doke. So a few thoughts. You don't have to do all of this by tomorrow. The universe has your back. The big question for you is, do you want to be creating more for your financial future? So I think everyone can be thinking about that. If yes, like we said, pick a few things. Don't focus on all 5 of these. I feel like this is the big message that we didn't actually share yet, is look at those 5 things and say to yourself, well, which one is the one that I need to spend more time on today and get clear with before you move on to another? It'd be really hard to take on all 5 of those. Fair enough. It's just too much. So figure out the one that's going to make the biggest impact in your lives. And then you'll bounce around over time, is my take on it. Did you have something you wanted to share?
Georgiana, she says, so wondering the best way to master these things. And I think, Georgiana, guess what? One step at a time, a little bit of a time. It's so overwhelming. If I even look at this and I go, how can I do all of these? I'm running a business by myself. How in the world can I focus on all of this at once? And it's just impossible and overwhelming. And then that makes you just crawl in a ball, roll up in a ball and do nothing, which that's not what we want. So my approach has been just what Lisa said. Pick the ones that resonate the biggest with you, that have the most energy coming into you. And those are the ones you tackle first, because they probably are the ones that need the most focus right away. And just take baby steps, and you'll get there. And you'll get there if you just start to pay attention and take baby steps. So anything else from you, Lisa, for Georgiana?
Well, I think that there's always but it'd be better if there was if I had all this mindset stuff worked out, or it'd be better. I think that we need to be very practical when we answer that question too. It may be for you, it may be focusing on the cash, what's going to be bringing the money into the business right now. I recently saw Chris Guillebeau talk about his book, Side Hustle. And it was very inspiring to me, because I'm some of us may be in businesses that we're building over the long haul. But at the same time, there are some ideas that aren't as hard to build out and can provide a side hustle income. And when I heard Chris talk about these stories, people baking bread, and their passion on the side was baking bread, and now they're making $80,000 a year through a Teachable class, it's kind of amazing how you might be able to take some things that just come naturally to you and turn those into a side hustle to allow you to have the freedom to build what you're wanting to do over the long haul. So the point is there's not just one answer, but do focus on where can the money be coming from if the money is the issue. And I feel like based on the surveys that came in, the cash flow piece is one of the big areas that we need to be very strategic about. Was there any comments about that?
Let's see. I'm trying to see the name. Deb's just saying she had this conversation with someone today. Totally agree. One small thing every day. And I don't know who. Oh, Patricia said, I love the baby step idea. Keeps the process realistic and manageable. Lisa, I can't remember. What was it that we were talking about the other day? And you said, well, Karen, you just do this, this, and this. And I went, easy for you to say, like, what? I can't even go there. What were we talking about? But
no, I've got my big picture ideas. This is such a good conversation with the two of us, because Georgiana's like, Lisa, come on, or Karen's like, it's not that easy for us. I'm sorry. And so Karen's like, let me tell you how to break this down into really good parts and make it happen.
Lisa's in the high level going, Karen, you just need to, buy this get a passive income. You just got to buy a rental property. I'm like, I don't have the down payment for a rental property. Like, wait a minute, we got to go back further in the process here. How do I save for that? So I think it's the accounting background that I go back, really dive down to the basics. and the great thing is Lisa does have wonderful thinking and concepts and where we want to go. But I think that's why together we are a good team, because she has great vision, great ideas, great concepts. And I kind of look at myself as a nuts and bolts person. I'm like nuts and bolts. Okay, wait a minute. We got to figure that one out. So I hope that resonates with people, that sometimes ideas are so big that I can't connect to them. And I have to find a way to build to them to say, oh, I could do that. I could do that. Yeah,
totally. And we haven't talked about it, but a lot of times I will say when I get proposals or applications for coaching and stuff, far too often I see people say, I'm making $20,000 or $30,000 in my business, and next year I want to be making $150,000. And I just always want to caution people from being overly optimistic about what it takes to get to those big numbers, so that you're setting yourself up for success. Like, I would rather have you estimate. We like to use good, better, best scenarios. So a good is, I'm going to make that goal. The better is, I'm going to be a stretching to get there. And the best is like that crazy, wild idea of what you'd love to have happen. But no matter what, you're setting yourself up for success with your goals. So we do a lot of goal planning, but we want to be really careful not to have goals that are just completely, difficult to achieve. And we're going to end up being very hard on ourselves as a result of not achieving them.
Yeah. So Patricia is stating that she really focused on bringing in money and was able to absolutely increase that, had a great month. How does she keep it going? And Georgiana said, there's so much info out there. How do I trust what is the best information? And she's right. If you Google a topic, you're going to get so many perspectives and so many ideas. I'm going to answer it, and then I'll let Lisa say something about it. But again, Georgiana, I always come back to very simple applications in my life. Through looking at everyone's businesses, I have found that there are similar struggles over and over and over. And it doesn't matter what size your business is. We all have very similar challenges. And if you can just really become focused on what is it that you're trying to solve, what is the information, what is the mastery you're trying to solve, and pick a very few simple ways to do it. It is not magic. It is not a magic pill out there. It's not going to happen that way. And if you're talking about people to trust, that's a different topic. I'm talking about manner and systems in which to solve issues, financial issues. So that's one issue. If you're talking more about people, that one's harder. I'm going to let Lisa take that one about who to trust.
Yeah, I just did a live about this, about like programs and investments on Facebook a couple days ago, because maybe it was Friday. And I feel like there is a system around making those decisions. I also think that the thing that bums me out the most is I've been doing these programs that we're going to talk about, these group programs, for about 3 years now. And when I find out that somebody bought something and didn't post it in the group or ask others' input before they made that decision, I think that that's not a really good pattern to get into when you're a business owner and you have access to groups. Like, I feel like the sales techniques out there are so sexy, attractive, highly alluring, very, very tempting, that we want to be really good about looking at what's being offered and then getting other people's input before we make those decisions. Because I have been guilty of this too, and I've learned the hard way.
Me too.
Thank God, many of them offer like refunds where in the first month you realize you're into something and it's not a good fit. But because I've taken advantage of that before. But use your resources, use your collective communities to help you with that. And it's a great lead-in to what we wanted to just get your thoughts on. Hopefully you've been having fun. Thank you so much for staying. I know people had to sign off. Maybe they're catching the second part in the replay, but thank you so much for staying and all these questions. It's like, makes me so happy. What we're trying to get a feel for is this idea of a financial mastery collective where members are focused on growing their personal fulfillment and their financial wealth on their own terms within a supportive community. The idea is bringing together mentors in financial knowledge and expertise, unbiased financial advice, ongoing training, the money mindfulness practices that I often teach, budgeting tools that came up, resources, books, community, accountability, and potential for retreats here in Sedona where we meet in person. This is something that's very similar to what I've already been doing for a few years. But the difference here is that this is bringing other experts into the experience, because, you know, what you see is what you get with me. Like, I know some things and then there's a lot of things I don't know, but what made all the difference to me this time around is when Karen accepted the idea of being a part of this. That's when I was like, okay, this could be a deal changer for me, for our businesses, and also for the people who are interested in it. So what can it look like? Kind of already things that I've said, but part of the cool thing of having over close to 200 interviews done on the podcast is I know a lot of people that have similar methodology and philosophies, similar to what Karen and I have been talking about today, that bring a wealth of information. And these are like the most generous, kind-hearted, warm people. I've just asked them, hey, if I do this, would you show up and help people understand more of the methodology? Would you be a guest lecturer and for this community to help us understand things that you know better than we do? Debt paying off, rich habits, the habitudes of the wealthy, contracts, being able to be legal contracts and how to master that. Adam Carroll, who's a financial whiz with helping people prepare for college, paying for college, as well as helping business owners. Let's see, what else is here? Accountability matchup. This is fun. I've done this in the 90-day year and some other things where you get matched up with people who are at a close enough similar stage, but maybe you're going to push each other in different areas where you can be accountability partners. And remember those indices that Karen talked about. I mean, one possibility is you get matched up with someone and you're running through your indices on a monthly basis together about your financial numbers. So you're checking in, you're talking about it with somebody who also wants to be doing the same thing for themselves. That's like one example of what could happen with that Facebook group. The goal of all of this, so I'm not sure if you know this, but the goal with something like this would be to helping business owners get to a net profit of $10K a month or more. Or more, because some people are there, but not the majority of the people who are showing up for this. So getting to that, if you're in a partnership, then that would mean 10K for both of you. But the idea is being able to net more than $100,000 a year, which creates a whole bunch of interesting, awesome things, and also some challenges that Karen would actually need to help us with as we get into that. But it turns out that only 3% of women in the United States actually make more than $100,000, and only 10%, and this is across the board for employed and self-employed, unemployed. So that's how it feels sometimes. But the goal is, how can we get there? What do we do to get to that place? Because that is a magical place that changes people's lives. When you start to have that kind of money, you start to have money left over to invest, to save, to provide for some of the things we've been talking about. Also becoming more savvy, becoming your own CFO ultimately, and increasing personal freedom and confidence. So I'm just going to check in with folks. You know, how interesting is this? Because both of us are very, we have a lot of options in our lives, but the thought was, is this interesting to you? Do you like what we're talking about? Are these things that are important to your business that you can't find anywhere else? And I'll let you check in and see. I know some people are posting some stuff. Karen, do you see?
Yeah, Beth is saying extremely interesting. So I'm just waiting for other people to come up. But I am seeing some, Georgie, and I think that answers the question, where do I go? I go here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some other posts that have come up of where people are, in their business and what they're dealing with. And, these are the things, like what I'm seeing is, maybe there's some very specific situations right now that people would like help with. And that's what we would do. That's what we would do.
Yeah.
We would dive in. I mean, I guess what I want people to know, that this isn't what we're thinking about doing, isn't where we just sit here and give a lecture. We want to help you. And this is a way for us to broaden our spectrum. For me, especially, I'm somewhat regional right now, and realize that the things I can do with business owners has a broader reach. And this was one of the ways to be able to do that. So I want everyone to understand that we would dive deep into their businesses and their issues and help them.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that can be done. So like, okay, so let's see, what did I put together? So on this, actually, before I even go into that, the idea is to have once a month a deep dive topic. Those topics are based on the community that gets created. What is rising to the top? What are the most important things that that are going to make a difference in your business? So once a month, that sort of thing. Then we also have open coaching calls, like live coaching calls with either Karen or myself or both of us, to answer your questions. It's just open. Whatever comes in, we dive into that. Yeah. And then also in the Facebook group, the idea is you can tag with questions and say, hey, and if it's something that, maybe we can hop on the phone real quick, we'll do it. But the cool thing is the more that gets shared in these group settings, everybody benefits by the conversation. So that's what we've been learning in the other groups. And you just
Deb wanted to know how it compares to the Heal Your Money group.
Yeah. Perfect. So Heal Your Money was a 90-day program. And here, what I've found is I want to have it be ongoing. So the first year we start out and we know that we're going to all go on this journey together, and we're going to have those topics come up. The thing about Heal Your Money Story, and I probably won't do Heal Your Money Story if I end up doing this, because it would be too much, but Heal Your Money Story was 90 days. And what we both noticed is that behavior changed pretty radically in the 90-day period. But within 60 days of ending the course, people were more often than not going back to their same behaviors. And so what I took away from that is that there's a lot of merit to keep this conversation going on an ongoing basis, because it's too easy to get super excited about something and then fall back into your behaviors of ignoring it after a certain amount of time. Now, that's not totally fair because that's not exactly what happened, but they kept elements of it, but there was just this piece. I mean, Karen, you can speak to it better. Like, what happens when this is top of mind share?
Yeah, I mean, when it's top of mind and you're coming back and talking about how, something went over the last few weeks, you're going to stay on top of it. It's going to be your focus. So I do believe that there's some benefit into it being a longer term. The questions are also coming up is one person said, hey, I don't own a business. Would this still be beneficial? My answer is absolutely. There's great benefit in everything we're talking about. This person has some investment properties. So it's all about understanding finances, building wealth, whatever it is. So I believe that person definitely could get something out of this group. You agree?
And you and I are pretty focused on real estate right now. So that happens to also be a personal, like I'm doing the commercial real estate, I'm doing the business or commercial and then residential. We're about to start Airbnb. In fact, one of my side hustles coming up is going to be a course around bringing all my people together who are being Airbnb experts to teach me. And then we're going to create a side hustle class around how do you build a business around Airbnb. So those conversations are very relevant for us because we happen to know them. There may be other things that we don't know as much about, but I feel like we've just kind of shared that with you here.
Yeah. And then the question's coming up, would there be assignments like in ways to master these things? How will they move along through the program?
Yeah. So typically what we do, there's a lot of the work that would be presented here would be things that were used in my different courses over the past 3 years. So there's a ton of templates that we would be using for the classes we teach. And then we can have assignments. But again, I think it's going to be, my experience shows me that some people are going to want to run with those and other people are like, yeah, I'm good just getting the overview. And we would have those kinds of things be optional for how deep you want to go. And I think even part of turning our attention to this program would be going out and finding more resources that we can bring to you that we might not even use right now, but now we have the incentive to go look for them. Like that's kind of how it's like we go hunt those solutions and then we bring them back because we are able to discern what makes sense and what doesn't make sense through our own expertise. So, okay, so here's, what would the annual cost be? We talked about this, like fascinating because both of us have so much expertise. We could make a lot of money just going out and working for a company or working, big companies can afford to pay us for these sorts of services that we have learned. But we both love small business. That's our passion. That's what we're all about. We're going to continue to do that. And when I look out in the marketplace, I've seen that this sort of program has been, I paid for something that was far less than this. I paid about $25,000 for a year program. So I throw out $12,000 conservatively. What I have decided is that when this program, if we decide to move forward, if it's launched in the spring, it will likely run about $5,500 a year. I spoke at length with one of my mentors about this pricing to make sure that it is something that you hopefully could recover that in the first year. Like no question about it. We would want you to be able to recover it. But he also suggested as a longtime business owner, most people should be looking at the investment for this is probably 2 to 3 years because you're going to continue to learn and grow from everything that you get in that 1 year. But what I'm doing, because I feel a lot of loyalty to my community that has been working with me for a while, I knew that even that price wasn't going to be the right number for them. And I'm pretty biased towards several people that I love very much who are on this call. And what I decided to do was if we have 20 founding members, the program would be $2,500 for the year for those people to help us get this up and running. We would be asking questions. This is not private coaching. This is a group experience. Just want to say that there are other ways to work with us for specific things, and that will continue. But what's happening is if we have 20 people that are interested in committing to membership by the end of November, then we would be starting January of next year. Everyone who registers for the workshop will receive a survey and that gives us their feedback and their thoughts about what we're doing, what they, are they interested? If you're interested, we can send you an application. The idea is we'll review all of that in November and probably have phone discussions just to make sure it's a good fit for everybody who wants to be a part of it, and solidify, is this happening, or are we going to go do something different because this didn't resonate with enough people? And then in December, there will be a lot of let's look at what are the topics that you want us to cover in the first quarter, so that we're very targeted to the members. And then we start up and we get the calendar all organized and all that good stuff. So if you've ever done this, any thoughts or things coming up, Karen?
Georgiana said bye. She had to go, but she likes it. But she likes the idea a lot, so that's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was really clear that I'm not, just for some of the reasons we talked about before. There's a lot of things that go on out there in the world, and building things and tactics around sales, and it really wasn't speaking to me with any of this, nor has it ever. So really what we wanted to do was find out, is what we're talking about meaningful? Could this change your life? Could this help you build the future that you're wanting to build? Would this be an extra addition to your business that you see could help you affect your bottom line and do it more successfully? Because you're not meant to be hanging by a tree branch when it comes to your success. People do thrive by, I think, doing things together. We've proven that again and again. And I also will say, breaking out of your comfort zone with some of the things you might be doing that aren't serving you might be difficult, but the view on the other side is very beautiful. And I notice, are some things coming in, Karen? You can help.
No. A lot of people are having to sign off, but they're all saying thank you. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if you have any other questions, we're happy to answer them in the next couple minutes. I hope this has been helpful. We definitely wanted to provide a ton of value and perspective and give you as much as we could in this couple hours. It's a long time to be together. So thank you for staying with it. I really appreciate it.
There's one question coming up asking if there would be a payment plan.
Yeah, there will be. So bring us onto the screen. Yeah, there will be a payment plan. That won't be a problem. In fact, I'll be looking for feedback about that kind of thing. Like what makes sense, because I am very flexible about all of those things. It's more about finding the right people and having this, make sense and speak to what your goals are. So share that stuff with us. Send me an email, send Karen an email. Go ahead and ask other questions. Happy to do that. Anything else that you want to add, Karen?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. And this was fun for me. Like we said at the very beginning, this is kind of a new venture for myself, but I'm excited about it. And just like you said, this is not set in stone. We're trying to put together something that will help people. And we're trying to figure out the best way to do that, because we do feel we have a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and how can we put it together to really help people, business or personal. I want to say it doesn't have to be business. It can be personal too.
Yeah. I think too, like the cost of this program in relative terms, we spend this kind of money on our cable, our cell phone, there are a lot of things that do not give us the kind of return on investment that we would be expecting to provide through this program. And, I really struggled. Like, was it too little of a price? But I felt like if that meant the difference to having people come on board and helping us create it, then I would be willing to do that. But I do know that it's pretty smoking awesome deal to have two of us for the year. And I know that pretty that great things can happen as a result. And hopefully you got a feel for who we are, how we show up. The resources are pretty extensive, and I'm just super excited that we had all this engagement. Like, I don't think I've ever had that much engagement. Oh, Deb,
good.
Thank you. Yeah, and feel free when the replay comes out to share it with friends, share it with people that you know are in business and are looking to take things to the next level. This, like we said, I think up to maybe 500,000 in revenue, this is a program that can support that growth, can help you get there faster, can help you not have it be as much of a struggle. And I think one of the most powerful things is keep you from spending money on things that you probably aren't ready to spend money on. So that in and of itself may pay for it. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. We did it in 2 hours.
Yay.
Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Deb, Kevin, Mike, Teresa, everybody.
Bye.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Karen. So much. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.